But we should probably start with like a 5-minute just quiet reflection so people can look over their notes and think about what it is they'd like to share today, what was significant that you saw, and then just jot down some ideas and conclusions.
Looks like we're ready to get started. Just to kind of go over the format for the debriefing, we'll be starting with Jackie's comments, of course, and then going on to the members of the team. And like to ask you to really focus your comments on the goals and observation points that you listed in your lesson, and perhaps even to think about something unique in your data that maybe hasn't been mentioned before. Please let us know if you agree with the previous speakers, like, oh, I also noticed that, but try to come up with the unique points of your particular observations. Would ask you to keep comments to 5 minutes or less, and then we will also have some time to invite our outside visitors and observers to make some comments and share the data that they've collected.
The first thing that I was thinking about was the 10-minute mini lesson, which is still very elusive to me. I really had in my mind, I want just 10 minutes for the mini lesson. I want to be done at 9:10, you know. So I want to see that done, you know. It's like I haven't been able to pull it off myself, and that's a point of frustration for me. So I wasn't surprised when it was really hard for kids today, because it was hard for me, and I really anticipated that it was going to be a struggle for them to have to do this in the lesson. And it also made me, Jane, it gave me greater insight into the modeling versus models thing, which I have to say, you know, and we sent the rationale out to everybody and was getting feedback. Jane emailed me back and she said, I don't think we've really captured our, you know, confusion, our discussion around modeling and using models. And I was kind of like, huh? What are you talking about? And so when I saw her on Saturday, I was like, well, tell me more about what you meant about that. So then Jane explained it. She goes, well, modeling is a verb. It's something we actively do, and, you know, showing something is using a model. So that's two different things. And so we need to be clear about that and what we're using as a strategy. So I felt like I got that better after our conversation, and I didn't know in the group what was the group think around that. And I felt like I even got it even more after doing this lesson, because you know, if you're just always showing examples of a model of, well, this is a really good model of where an author did this, then you don't have a sense for like what it takes to get there. If you're modeling it, you know it so much better than recognizing it. And this was really true for kids, because both with using my rotten redheaded older brother and the student writing sample, they were stars at finding emotion, and they were stars at finding how the author did that. But then when asked to do it themselves, I felt they really struggled with that.
Jackie, for taking this on. You know my fears of writing, so I really appreciate it. It was fun to see, of course, you teaching, but just doing the mini lesson, I feel like I can now go bring it to life in my own room. That's what's so cool about observing other teachers doing the lesson. I think the students are getting it, but slowly, so I can really see the importance, like you said, Jackie, of teaching it several times. The same thing, the same mini lesson over and over again, but different ways. And I also could see now the huge importance of mini lessons. Keep them short, but do them often about the same topic.
BJ was one of my students last year, and he could not write about anything but baseball last year. So trying to pull in other things was really hard. Here he wrote a beautiful passage about India.
Thanks for setting that up, because that's the same group that I was watching. So it's nice. First, Jackie, thank you for allowing us to visit your classroom and taking on that instruction piece. I know you were not at all nervous, so that's a good thing. I had felt like I had a little advantage having been in there last week. One of the areas that I know we've talked about today, but just to add on, when students reread their notebooks and had some ideas about what they were thinking, I felt like that really prompted them to be able to write that description more easily. the group that we were observing, VJ, really took some time to reread, and he was looking for that piece about India. He read some other pieces, and then he kind of held his hand there and read some others, and then came back to that and decided that that was the one he wanted to focus on today. And he really was thoughtful about which parts he wanted to add. It went well for the group. They struggled for some parts of it, but I think it's just like you were saying, it's the string of lessons that just keeps building, and I think that there's successes along the way and things that we can continue to look at. So thank you.
William was very interesting because when he did write his quick revision, it was, "I felt happy," and a little sentence. And then he kind of blanked out for 15 minutes, started to write a brand new story, and then went back right when you said there's 10 more minutes and then we're going to share. He went back to where his post-it note was and then wrote a physical description. So I think hearing you give the directions again at the end kind of clicked with him, and he wrote down, "My arms and my legs were very achy from carrying my heavy backpack."
I was just very impressed with the calm, intense working environment. Everyone knew that it was their task to be involved with their writing, and there wasn't a question with that at all, so I could see that the procedures were firmly in place. Despite the fact that, you know, they were struggling with new content area. And I think that's important, that those procedures need to be in place.
I'd like to open it up to our visitors to share what you observed.
I was struck by how, just listening to this conversation now, how most of the habits of mind and skills and knowledge that we really care about develop over many years in many classrooms. And hearing all of you say, well, I saw him last year and this is the growth I see. I mean, it just was so inspiring to me to see that kind of cooperation across classrooms, because that's what's going to really make it happen for kids.
But as a result of visiting a lot, people wanted me to get to as many classrooms as possible. So I often didn't have this kind of opportunity to really reflect on a whole lesson. I did a lot of drive-by visits into classrooms. And having said that, I have a couple of big picture observations. First, I was thrilled and relieved to see how much time and attention we're going to writing. You may know that because writing is only tested in 3 grades, there are many schools, and this is in Sacramento and Los Angeles and all across the state, where children are not writing very much, and that they're writing a little bit more in the 4th grade because that's where they get tested. But more than ever, I'm convinced that it's really writing where you learn to think. And so I really appreciated the time that was given to this lesson. I especially like this, though. I think for too long we have not allowed, the word isolation is so often used for teachers. And this reflective time, I think, is as important in instilling the issues around modeling and models for all of you as being in the classroom itself. So I think this is marvelous.
In terms of questions that I heard come up, the one was the difference between a more interactive versus a more directed kind of mini lesson. Are there cultural and gender differences maybe that are at play in some of this, particularly describing emotion? And the third one, and I know there were others, but that I heard come up more than once, was, is there a way to break this down and maybe provide some more specific modeling, or modeling in other ways, perhaps role playing for the students to help move them along in their using the description of emotion in their writing?